Hello, I'm Greg Ross. My personal pursuit of awareness has brought me to a point where I would like to share my experience of transformation. There are two reasons. First, I've had many interesting and unusual experiences, but for a long time have been unable to think or talk about them in a way that satisfied me. Studying theories of personality development and other maps of the mind have given me concepts and a vocabulary to do that. Applying these theories and concepts in the process of creating this video has given me new perspective, clarity, and insight about who I am and what I can do. Secondly, I could stop there and keep it private, but I'd like to share it with people in the hope that some good will come of it. Obviously, this sort of thing will not appeal to everyone, nor should it. As Jung puts it, men and women who have grown to wisdom very rarely consider the psychological development of their personality. I would like to dispel some of the fear you may have for self-discovery and encourage you on your path. Jung also says, some people have an urge and capacity for higher differentiation. For you who have taken up the journey, I am a fellow traveler. This is for those who are interested in self-discovery and the pursuit of awareness. People choose a style of embracing the world that can be seen as left or right brain predominant. Accountant, artist, sculptor, scientist. This predominance influences a person's self-image of who they are in relationship to the world. Hemispheric preference can be seen as a context for the expression of the individual, a means, not an end. We are more and can be more than we accept for ourselves. During the early stages of personality formation, we choose from those behaviors that fit us to our personal environment. Behaviors chosen as a result of socialization need not determine the whole of our lives. Each of us has another side that awaits our exploration. We are capable of more total expression. Here I am at 7 months. I've been given a snare drum for my first Christmas present. I was wondering, what am I supposed to do with this thing? Notice the cowboy on the drum. Both my parents loved music. I think they wanted an entertainer in the family. My older sister was a scholar, so I guess I got the snare drum. I noticed they didn't give me a slide rule. A couple years later, my parents had taken me to a nightclub. We were listening to a band. I spontaneously got up and danced by myself to the music, to the amusement of the patrons and to the relief of the band. I was apparently the only one who enjoyed them. I was just having fun, but I think on that day my parents decided a star had been born. At 89 months, on my 7th birthday, I was again given a drum. Also at this time, my mother enrolled me in tap dancing lessons. I remember the first day, there were 8 or 9 little girls all hopping around with these noisy shoes while some lady played the piano. All this in front of a giant mirror, and they expected me to participate. For me, this was a nightmare and an intense humiliation. For the first lesson, I sat in a chair, hiding my face in my hands. I remember being afraid that the other kids at school would find out. However, I went along. It was hard for me to say no to my mother. I stayed with the singing, dancing, and acrobatic lessons for several years. There were no other boys in the dance school, and as I was fast becoming pre-adolescent, I could no longer risk being seen as a sissy by my peers. I finally told my mother I could no longer go. In the years that followed, there was a continued emphasis on singing, dancing, and entertainment. I began to feel that these things were somehow more important or better than work. This showed up in my schoolwork. I was a mediocre student. Yet, when tested, I continually scored high on diagnostic abilities, reading skill, and comprehension. Once, when a teacher had my mother come to school to discuss my problem, the teacher wanted to demonstrate my backwardness with an impromptu oral quiz. But I knew the answer to every question. I understood the material, but I just couldn't see that it had any importance. By the time I was 15, I had decided that I wanted to be a musician. I had tried different instruments, but for some reason I chose the drums. As the years went on, it became the one thing that I was dedicated to. I could not see the value of high school, so I dropped out. I got a job and continued with music. At some point, I was able to connect school to the drums, and then went back to high school. I got into the orchestra, and for the first time got A's and B's. I now had a plan to go to music college. I became dedicated to music, and for the years to come, I would practice for hours every day. In fact, for the next 10 years, practicing and performing would be my life. Back at high school, I was an older student. I met the orchestra teacher, that's her behind me, and we decided to form a group. We wanted to combine classical and the contemporary music styles. This was in the days of Jesus Christ Superstar and Tommy, the rock opera by The Who. We were also influenced by a group called Emerson, Lake and Palmer and their heavy use of keyboards and rock arrangements of classical music. Here is a program from one of our earlier concerts. I feel the name Royal Polyphony and the logo have religious overtones. We felt at that time that if we were not actually on a mission from God, that we were at least divinely inspired. We were searching for something, perhaps destiny, as seen in the title of the program, Quest for an Engulfed Cathedral. The concert keyed on a piece by Debussy, who had imagined a castle rising out of the ocean. In our arrangement, we used the piece to voice our questions. Where was God? In a cathedral? Was God hiding in a cathedral under the sea? Or just submerged in our consciousness? We wanted to record an album and had visions of enlightening the world with records and concerts. From the beginning, our music was original, dramatic, and had a storybook quality. Here, from a performance in 1973, we had put to music the struggle we felt with our internal demons in a piece entitled The Pandemonium Shadow Show.
Continuing life with fear might be the best. Is there strength to find, or must I be damned, the victim of my mind? what have I become? It's up to me to have faith in myself, for no one else can help me, change me. Now I see the light. The flame is so bright, it's blinding my sight. Love has shown me the way. The clouds have all gone away, and the sun is blinding my eyes. And now I see that I've won the struggle to live my life as I know it's meant to be. At last I can see my mind has been freed. Now I'm a light flowing with love, strength, free will. And now that I'm free, my mind has been free. I know I am free.
The project grew. We joined forces with a modern dance company. We gained some local attention, and we took the show on the road, touring the East Coast and the Midwest, doing mostly college concerts. At one point, we had 15 performers and a 4-piece stage crew. We never made a dime, but we were performing artists, and we were doing what we wanted to be doing. We reformed. New members, a new name, and a new direction. We were trying to become commercial. I resisted this change. I was afraid we would lose the art to pay the bills. The new name, Destiny, still suggested fate and mystery, but finally I was the only one who wanted to search for God through the music. Soon all my fears became reality. When we played songs like All I Need Is Money, I knew the project was no longer the one I had begun. During the next 2 years, I became increasingly depressed. I partied a lot and drank heavily. I began to party by myself. As I look at this now, I can see that I had a lot to say. But no matter how loud I played, no matter how fast I could go, I seldom ever felt like I was really communicating with an audience. It was more like a one-way conversation with me doing all the talking. I felt trapped in my own world, and it did not feel good. During this dark period, a friend encouraged me to enroll in the EST training. The training offered a setting in which I could be transformed or have a new and profound experience of my being. It sounded like brainwashing, but I needed something, and perhaps washing my brain would be a good idea. Jung sees the 2 steps to individuation. First, we must separate from the persona, or the act or roles we present to the world. We are more than the feelings and the behaviors we show to each other. Secondly, we need to recognize our shadow, or the other side of our personalities, the part we repress. Jung calls the female aspect of a man's personality the anima. For the female, it is the animus. The shadow is not necessarily dark. We often withhold our joy and creativity as well as our fear and anger. Taking these steps toward individuation may leave us feeling exposed and sensitive. Jung says, "To have a soul is a hazardous enterprise of life." The S training took place at the Pitt Congress Hotel in Chicago. It took 2 weekends and cost about $325. All I can say is that it made a difference for me. Within a month, I stopped drinking alcohol. Within 2 months, I stopped smoking cigarettes. Both were habits I had struggled with for over 15 years. I began to think and feel differently about myself. And most importantly, I began to have a greater capacity to see other people's points of view. Jung explains, individuation gives rise to a consciousness that is no longer enmeshed in the petty personal world of the ego, but shares in a wider world. Some people have said that I looked much older then than I do now, compared to this recent picture taken 10 years later. My father had never been able to understand my music or appreciate my drumming skill. It occurred to me to try and reach him through music he enjoyed. I began to sing and play the guitar. Unlike the drums, I could actually say something with my newly discovered voice. Singing for people became very important for me, and so emerged a new persona, Cowboy Bob.
Well, hear that train a-coming, rolling round the bend, and I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when, and I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. That train keeps a-rolling on down to San Antonio. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son.
One of the first things I noticed was that people liked Cowboy Bob, and that Cowboy Bob could earn money. The first time he appeared, the Mason Lodge paid $50 for a half hour's worth of old cowboy songs. This was a real surprise, keeping in mind that I had been a starving artist all my life. Even with tons of sound and lighting equipment, I had never connected with an audience in this way. After one performance, a little boy came up and asked if I was really Cowboy Bob. I answered that I was, and realized for the first time that I felt like a real performer. He asked for my autograph. As Cowboy Bob, I was able to reach people and be with people. I could see that Cowboy Bob could connect with the audience, and I found this very satisfying. In 1983, I moved from Chicago to Michigan to spend some time with my father. I joined the cross-country band as the drummer, but this time I was singing. During the next year, I became used to singing to the audience. So now, here I am at 396 months. I still have that quizzical look on my face, and I was still stuck behind the drums. Well, I went back to college, took advantage of the music department, studied the bass guitar, and finally, I was liberated. I spent last winter on the road with a top 40 band called The Photos, this time as the singer and bass player. At this point, presently, I feel like I've graduated to the front of the band, or rather, to the front of my own consciousness. I feel more balanced. I have in no way left music out of my life, but have rediscovered my left brain and have a new belief system that can include more of who I am and what I can be and do. As a drummer, I felt limited. I've made a shift from artist to entertainer. As an artist, I would insist that the audience hear my music from my point of view. As an entertainer, I'm more interested in giving the audience what they want, rather than what I want. Musical instruments have become a means rather than an end. Different forms of expression are now open to me. Interestingly enough, The Western test that correlates information about personality, vocational interests, and diagnostic ability reported that I could be a lawyer, or a religious leader, an entertainer, or a doctor. I can't help but wonder what might have happened if I had been given a slide rule in place of a snare drum. I am of the opinion that to be fully aware, fully functioning, is our supreme inheritance and should be our greatest priority. Is it possible to take the controls and expedite the natural process? Perhaps the next step in psychological evolution is elective. Perhaps evolution is mature, and further growth lies within the power of the individual as a matter of choice. If it is so, then daily life is where we make it happen. We do not have to change the contents of our lives to change the context, nor do we have to move to India to become enlightened. It is up to each individual to take responsibility for their own personal growth, to fulfill their potential, so that we become a society that fulfills its potentials, that in turn will make up a world that is fully functioning, self-actualizing, and capable of unimagined possibilities.